Could Coby and Ayo Dosunmu be the new Luol Deng and Kirk Hinrich for the modern Chicago Bulls? Me and Pat are to discuss that, as well as does DeMar DeRozan have the most leverage in contract negotiations with the Chicago Bulls as well? And then we're going to play start, bench, and cut with some potential free agents this offseason for the Bulls. We're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze, and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcast. And Pat, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So just thinking about Bulls, past, present, maybe even some future Bulls. We'll talk about that at some point in time. But when you look at the growth that Coby and Ayo have had together, on top of how well their games fit together, and I think some things came to mind for me, right? And not to say that Coby and Ayo are going to turn into these perennial all-stars, things like that, that we need to see a lot more before we're willing to say that. But I am willing to say that looking at how their skill set, how they've grown together, their chemistry together, that it reminded me of Kirk Hinrich and Luol Deng, two players that were both solid on both sides of the ball. Deng, especially defensively, but came along offensively, especially under Tom Thibodeau. Kirk, who we already know, Kirk could do a little bit of everything: pass, shoot, score the ball when he needed to, right? And these were two players that became foundational pieces for the Chicago Bulls, so much so that when the Bulls built their best team in the last decade, right, that Jerry Reinsdorf said his one regret was that Kirk wasn't on the team. And then a year and a half later, he went and brought him back to the team because that's how much he missed him. When you look at these players, these two young guys, both 24 years old, that have grown so much this season, how do you feel about that comparison, Pat?
I mean, listen, first off, when you said the best team in the last decade, I had to realize that that's 2 decades ago.
Was it?
Kirk and Lou came in 03. Well, Kirk came in 03.
No, I'm talking about they were part of, by the best team in the decade, I mean that first team under Tom Thibodeau.
That's still 2010. That's over a decade ago.
Jesus
it's so crazy,
Christ,
dog. It's so crazy what you rate.
That's crazy.
Because the Boston Celtics series is Vinny Del Negro.
So Derrick Rose won the MVP in 2011. That was 13 years ago. That's crazy.
We've gone through stress.
Bruh. That's wild, bro. That's crazy, man.
No, but I do think that you make a really good point when you brought this up. The one thing I thought about was not so much the players that they were, but the players that they became around us getting Derrick Rose. I do still believe you need that Derrick Rose player. I think that you have two really, really solid players in Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, and the growth that they've shown this season. I think they showed the graph on the game yesterday where Ayo started off the season at like 4 points a game, and every month he continued to double until now he's been at about 15, almost 16 points a game. Like, that's something that you really feel like, okay, we have players that are building themselves up, still very young at that, but you still feel like you need that next guy. And the part where I think that Ayo and Coby fit this narrative perfectly is Luol Deng and Kirk Hinrich had to adjust their game to how great Derrick Rose was. Mm-hmm. They had to adjust. Kirk Hinrich, remember, he was not a shooter. He was a legitimate point guard, bring the ball up, facilitate.
But he
could shoot, but he was not a shooter. And then all of a sudden, he was like, "What y'all need me to do? We need a 3-point shooter on this team." He was like, "Bet I'll just become one of the best in franchise history."
Well, and people forget too that he literally in one summer, because he wanted to be able to play next to Derrick once he realized, hey man, this Derrick kid's good. He added 12 pounds of muscle in a single. Do you know how hard it is to add 12 pounds of muscle in a 6-month time period? Kirk put in that work, bro.
I'm drinking a beer at noon, so clearly I'm not. I have no idea what that is like. No, but realistically, what I'll say is that I find the most fascinating about, especially by the way, Kirk also, once he got the 12 pounds of muscle, was swinging on everybody. He was like, I'm not taking no mess from nobody. Here we go. We throwing these hands. But it's the realization that you have something really, really good here, and that it's adjustable. How, like we talked about yesterday, Coby White being able to play on ball, off ball. Ayo Dosunmu, how he's been playing the last couple of days, being able to play on ball, off ball. Those are the kind of players that you need to have successful teams, because it's not always going to be the perfect circumstance. It's not always going to be the best circumstance. Guess what? Coby White's probably going to deal with some injuries throughout his career. Most basketball players do. Turned ankles. Did you see? First off, R.I.P. to John Collins. It was a good run for you. And then there, right, like freaking Anthony Edwards dislocated his finger yesterday and then just popped it back in. Like it's crazy. But you're gonna deal with some injuries as a player. And so you need those guys that can kind of fit in everywhere. That's what Luol was. That's what Kirk was. Luol was a player to the point, and I think Ayo Dosunmu probably fits the Luol mold a little bit more. Height-wise, very different. But Ayo, lengthwise.
The play style.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Arm lengthwise is probably the same.
No, Dang had that 7'1" wingspan. He had a 7'1" wingspan.
Ain't Ayo's? What is Ayo's?
Is Ayo's over 7 foot?
Ayo's, I think, is almost 7 foot, if not close to it. I may be wrong on that, but I thought Ayo had like a ridiculous wingspan. That was why he was a captain.
6'8" wingspan.
6'8". Okay, never mind. That's a lot shorter. But when you look at how Ayo Dosunmu, how Luol Deng, I should say, could be a guy who, we got a guy down tonight, we may need you to bring the ball up some. That's fine. Because he ended up, he came in a little bit shorter, had that growth spurt during his Bulls times. He was a guy that handled the basketball a lot. We need you to play down low. That's fine. We need you to be able to catch and shoot on the three. That's fine, whatever you need. Ayo Dosunmu, to me, fits that mold so well. And that's why, not to say that I think that the Bulls are going to go out and get a superstar in this draft. Do I think they're in range for one? And listen, Terrence Shannon come here. We might have something on our hands, boys. But I believe that you have the players that if you did go get a TSJ, they could look at him and go, okay, we see how you operate in your game. You adjusting and stuff like that. We'll adjust off of you because you probably have the highest ceiling out of the three of us.
The problem with I know we talked about TSJ, and I thought about this after you talked. I think it was on the phone the other day. Like, the problem with that is the allegations, and we know Arturas Karnisovas isn't drafting anybody with those type of allegations around them, unfortunately.
See, here's the thing. Do we though? Because I know we think of Imani Bates, but let's be real. We all were excited about Imani Bates. Where's Imani Bates?
True. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when you look at AK's history in both free agent signings and drafting, he drafts high character guys.
Has there been somebody else outside of Imani Bates that we had concerns about? I don't think so.
But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't go after people with any concerns. He just doesn't. But I'll say this: you can do a lot worse than a young core of Coby, Ayo, and TSJ. Yeah, you can do a lot worse than that. So
I think that even with all of the allegations, when you start to dive into what realistically happened, if he falls in the draft, I think he'll fall in the draft.
He's going to fall in the draft.
I think he'll fall in the draft more because of age than the allegation.
Okay.
I think that this is going to be when you start to dive into, okay, what happened? Why is he able to get play during the season? What's going on here? And you're just like, oh, okay, so it makes sense. Okay, that checks out. I think that he would be a little bit more possibly okay with venturing down that path. And the thing is, you have to go. Who else are you going to go at that 12 to 14 range?
Oh, there's definitely bigs that are going to fall to that area.
Yeah, but that have a higher ceiling. I think that's the thing that have a higher ceiling possibly.
I'm not making the argument that they have higher ceilings, but again, I think when you pair the concerns with a position of need, I think that they could definitely go big. There are some bigs in this draft. There's that one big from France. There's a couple of bigs from France actually in this draft that I do think have super high ceilings. They also fit the mold of the Captain Carney mold, so that could be something that they go as well.
Listen, so did Walker Kessler, but we didn't get him. I think that the comparison of Lou and Kirk is such a good one to Coby and Ayo because the games that it's almost like a modern version of those two, right? It's like a modern day era version of those two. By the way, those are two of the few players on this team that are actually playing how we want modern era players to play. We don't have many. We don't have many. We
actually have more than what we thought because Julian fits that. OB fits the more modern player. we have more than it's just that Billy Donovan hasn't played.
Well, you gotta. I mean, listen. They also gotta have a green light to let that thing fly. You know what I mean? Like, we're still. What are we shooting the last? How many threes we shooting the last game?
What 23? Something
23,
like that?
24. Yeah, I mean, like it's still like, hey, get in that mid range, get to the bucket, lay that thing up. It's not like let it fly. So I don't know, man. I like the I love the comparison of that though.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what happens with that. I like the comparison between those players. I think they're good ones, but guys, let us know. And before you Kirk Hinrich and Ben Gordon aren't the comparison. Just because they play guards doesn't mean you have to compare them to two other guards, because both those players are and Coby and Ayo are more well-rounded than Ben Gordon ever was.
Ben Gordon was just he was a pure scorer. Like he was. Yeah. Listen, I know there's been, who was it? Big Dave loved Ben Gordon, former host of the show here. He loved Ben Gordon. Thinks he's the Catsby. I'm like, dog, listen, Ben Gordon is Chris Middleton with no defense.
Don't get me wrong, I loved Ben Gordon too, but it's like, yeah, you gotta recognize it, man. Like it was, and he had time. Every time Ben Gordon randomly played defense, I was like, why does he do this more often?
Bro, it was it.
Because that Boston series that we talked about, it was guarding players there. It is, it is what it is.
It was Ray Allen. I mean, you just had to stand out at the corner and hope that he didn't knock it down. But and he did. I gotta go rewatch that series again.
Hey, bro, that is one of the funnest series to rewatch, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
It might be the best playoff series.
It's literally, I think, the second best playoff series in history, regardless of where it happened in the playoffs. We'll have that'll have to be for another different one. That's a good one. We can get into a whole other subject with that one. We're going to be discussing DeMar DeRozan's leverage in the Chicago Bulls contract negotiations for him to possibly stay here in Chicago up next. Before we do that, though, got to talk to you guys about our sponsor, Stitch Fix. You know what instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new or trending favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want to, how I want to, no subscription required. And they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and a pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. My stylist always sends me just the right pieces, and the fit is on point. It's like they have style ESP. I don't know how they do it, but they get it every time. Stitch Fix makes it all look so easy. I don't like to shop, and they save me that time and effort. Plus, I get outfits that make me look really good. And if you don't love something, you just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes sense, that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. Again, stitchfix.com/lockedon. All right, Pat. So one of the biggest things and questions heading into this offseason is, what do the Bulls do with DeMar DeRozan? Now, if you listen to AK, as far as staying competitive, that kind of makes you think that they're in line with trying to keep DeMar DeRozan to stay competitive. Now, with growth and development, maybe things change that and maybe the Bulls do move Zach LaVine. It kind of makes that a little bit more clear here. But with the way that DeMar, in his 15th season in the NBA, is leading the league in minutes, has still been very clutch for the Chicago Bulls when they needed it the most, has been such an important calming factor. And then also, like, you got to look at the Washington game. The Bulls were cooking. DeMar took, 7 shots that whole game. So he's adapted his game about as well as we can expect for the changing style for the Chicago Bulls. Pat, all that I'm going to throw to you. Who do you think holds the leverage in the contract talks between DeMar and the Bulls?
Depends on if DeMar wants to move again. If DeMar is fine with leaving, DeMar holds the leverage, because realistically speaking, DeMar DeRozan is he's kind of become the player that you want him to become. And you know that the young guys love him. You know that Coby loves him. You know that Ayo loves him. You know, P. Will loves him. Like, he's the mentor on the court for these guys. And I don't know about going out west. Like, the whole going out west thing, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe we finally saw. Well, no, Ayo didn't go this year, did he?
No, he didn't go this summer.
We might need to stop the going out west thing. I don't know if that's working or not. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't feel like it worked for Dalen. Who else went this year? It was P. Will. Maybe a moment for P. Will. I don't know. But realistically, when I look at how DeMar has impacted the Chicago Bulls this year, I do believe that DeMar DeRozan is has the leverage, because he's done it in both ways. He's been able to go, hey, listen, You need me to be the behind the scenes guy. You need me to be the facilitator. You need me to be the score when I can guy. Boom, I can do that. You need me to be the dude that puts up 40. Boom, I can do that. You need me to play the most minutes in the NBA this year. Boom, I can do that because I'm working myself out. I'm building myself up to a point where I can make those adjustments happen. I think that realistically opens things up for DeMar more than probably what we had saw if we had seen last year's DeMar. Right now, AK just the Bulls, I should say, just don't have, like, there's not a good place to turn at that position.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're just going to say, P. Will, it's your turn. Here we go. And maybe that's the year to do it, right? Maybe you let DeMar walk and that's the year to do it. That's the way you go about it. But I don't see a viable option at the 3 right now that you feel great about on this team. I don't know who it would be.
No, OB. You don't think OB could be a viable option?
I mean, listen, I think a bunch of people can play it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, OB can play the 3. P. Will can play the 3. P. Will is probably more suited to play the 3. But can a bunch of people be what DeMar has been this year? I don't believe that will happen.
Well, that's true, but I think that's kind of a misnomer. I don't think you need somebody to necessarily come in and be exactly what, because nobody can do that. There's not very many people who can do that. What the Bulls will be weighing is, by adding kind of a more modern style player, how does that net them something, right? What does that get you over what DeMar is, which DeMar is great at what he does. That's why I say this is not to in any way slight DeMar DeRozan, because that's not what this is about. And I don't think that's what the Bulls will be looking at it at. But if there's a Venn diagram, that Venn diagram is first the cost to keep DeMar DeRozan, the need that he fits on the team, because right now what he's shown is a need. As much as Coby has stepped up, we've seen some faltering in the fourth quarter, right? It is a need. And then over there is, okay, by bringing in something different, how much does that then benefit the team on what some things that DeMar may not bring? And so that's where I think this team overall has to look at. And I think the draft will tell a lot of that. If they go wing in the draft, instead of big with some quality bigs on the table, I think that may point to that direction. I'm not saying for sure, but it may kind of point to where the Bulls are thinking.
Yeah, and you may feel good about some of the bigs that you have on this roster. I mean, like you do have Adama Sanago down in the G League that seems like he could be a viable piece as far as playing that Drummond role off of the bench. Vooch is going to be here, right? Vooch is under contract. He's going to be on this team. He's probably your starting big for the next couple of years, unless there's a massive fall off here. I think that you could address the wing in the draft as well. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that that's the position I would go. It's not. I'm diehard Illinois fan, so I get to watch this kid a ton. I would say even if you want to go like cheap on the wing, maybe you want to go big in the first round and maybe wait on something later on, and possibly in the first if you can move up, or even in the second. I would look at a guy like Coleman Hawkins as well if you want a discount guy, because he's been a guy who has been a little bit streaky kind of down the stretch, but he can shoot the ball. Maybe there's some things you need to refine. I think he fits that AK mold a little bit more. And when you need him to step up, he can. So there are some really good pieces in this draft that maybe aren't star pieces, but are fill-in pieces that you could throw in. And then if you have that much depth at that position youth-wise, then maybe you feel like the leverage is on the Bulls because, well, now we got to play people. We got to see what he is. Now we got to play OB a little bit more because we got to see what he is. We're more willing to let you walk away in that situation.
Gonna be interesting to see what the Bulls do, man. Like I said, there's positives and negatives to be made about all aspects in any way to view it when it comes down to it. And I think it also is determined by what route AK wants to go. Keep in mind too, even if the Bulls do look to move on from DeMar, which I'm not necessarily saying they do, and they get a little bit worse, I mean, our pick is top 10 protected next year to the San Antonio Spurs. So if the Bulls were to miss the play-in next year, not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
I mean, we get to hold on to that pick. Who's 2 years from now? 2 years from now.
The draft in 2025 is deep.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that's got
the one where you're talking about trying to, if you are, again, not saying that I want the Bulls, because listen, I don't want to see any tanking. I don't want to see this team tank ever. But if you were to, that's the draft that you can convince yourself, if you get anywhere in that top 5, you can get a transcendent star potentially in that draft.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I don't even think it's the tank route. I think it's the let's see how this thing plays out, right? If you go out there and you win 45 games
per se,
or you go out there and win 50 games, and it's because Coby, Ayo, and P. Will have finally woken up because you're moved on from DeMar. Oh, well, here we go. All right, we don't need the transcendent player. But if you go out there and you win 32 games, with that same
now we know exactly what this team is. That's a great way to view it too, because then you're removing the safety net both from the coach and Billy Donovan and the young players, and you really get to say, all right, this is y'all season to show us y'all want to be the stars of this team. Go out there and be those stars, and let's see what you can bring us. If not, and it don't work out, like you said, you end up winning 32, 35 games. Bet. Let's take a look at what that top 5 looks like. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a good route to go if it were me. But we know how AK is. He's all about being competitive. And listen, if you guys want to be competitive, the greatest place to go get some of those competitive pieces is LinkedIn Jobs, and that's where our next ad read is going to come from. Before we talk about who we're going to start bench cutting with some free agents that are out there who you can also find on LinkedIn Jobs. But LinkedIn isn't just another job board. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for that role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. With LinkedIn, they have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which make it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time to resource to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn Jobs for hiring. All you have to do to get started is post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
All right, last talk before we get up out here for today, Pat. Bleacher Report had an article of 3 potential free agent targets for the Chicago Bulls. And I do think that for it's not often that a Bleacher Report article makes complete sense, but for Bleacher Report, this does make pretty good sense for the Chicago Bulls looking at where they are. These free agents that they had on the list for the Chicago Bulls, we're going to go over that here, is Buddy Hield, Mo Wagner, Kelly Oubre Jr. Now, when you look at those players, Mo Wagner's clear. If you lose Andre Drummond in free agency, Mo Wagner absolutely has turned into one of the better backup bigs in the NBA. Kelly Oubre Jr. brings some shooting and scoring off the bench, especially if we move on from DeMar DeRozan. Buddy Hield, he just brings that 3-point shooting that we absolutely need to open the court for a lot of our players. So, we're going to play start, bench, or cut with these guys. You can describe your reasoning behind picking each one of these players as we go through, Pat. I'm going to turn it over to you first.
I'm cutting Kelly Oubre first and foremost. That's easy. Kelly Oubre is one of the most inefficient, nice players I've ever seen in my life. Like what's he? I think he's shooting 40% from the field this year. He's shooting 30% from 3. Defensively, I guess he brings length, but right, it's not like it's a ton of blocked shots on this guy's ledger. I think he did have 5 blocked shots versus the Heat, and I think that's 5 more than he had in his previous 20 games. I might be overselling that a little bit, but it's definitely 5 more than he had in his previous 5 games. Like, I don't know, but I'm good on Kelly Oubre Jr. I think at this point he's one of those guys that's just kind of I guess it all depends on money, right? But just name wise, I'm good on Kelly Oubre Jr. If I can get Kelly Oubre Jr. for like $5 million, bring him on. But that I'm good on him.
Here's my I'll get it when I get into
my bench. I would probably go Mo Wagner. I know we need the big. I'm not all in on Adama Sanago. I do think he's a really good player, but like I would love to have Mo Wagner off the bench. But the opportunity to have Buddy Hield, who's a guy that is just like, what's he do? Shoot. When you pass on it, shoot. How's he shoot? Well, what if shoot? Like literally the player that Javon Carter said he was going to be when he got here, Leroy. Yeah, I mean, like that's what Buddy Hield is. And I think that's something that if you're the Chicago Bulls, it's very, very hard for me to see you pass it up because you're a team that just refuses to shoot. So I can't pass up the 3-point shooting. Now, do his teeth come with him, or can you sign the teeth separate? Because that's a massive contract.
I think the teeth, you just have to have it. I mean, your dental plan automatically goes up. Could you imagine of what happened to
Buddy Hield and insurance is like, oh my God.
Yeah, the insurance is like, whoa. Now calm down here. You're getting a little too fancy on us. Here's the thing that as far as Buddy Hield, he's a great shooter, right? And that's what I was going to say. Kelly Oubre Jr. has this reputation of being a shooter and a scorer. He averaged shooting like 32% for his career from 3-point range. He's not a shooter, right? It's fun. I always wonder. Shoot. He can shoot, but I always wonder how players get these reputations, and then you sit there and you look at the stats, you're just like, what? But anyway,
Kelly Oubre is he's a very streaky shooter. He will have games where, or he will have moments where it's like 7 for 9, right? And he just gets hot, and you gotta ride it out with this guy. But like, I mean, I don't know. Kelly Oubre is not I'm surprised that we talk about Kelly Oubre as much for the player that he is.
I mean, to his credit, he's still averaging almost 15 points off the bench. He's doing that on 12 shots per game. I mean, I get it. I get the allure. Like, if you have a team with a really good structure, okay, I get that. But I think there's a reason why Philly still wanted to get Buddy Hield. That's all I'll say on that, right?
Bro, he's never shot, like, this is just field goal percentage in his career. He's never shot above 48% in his career from the field.
But he's known as a scorer. That sounds like a chucker to me. That's not a score.
A chucker.
That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, a big chucker.
He's a chucker. But
chucker.
What I would, much like you, I think I'd cut Kelly Oubre Jr. But I'd bench Buddy Hield. To me, I'd start Mo Wagner in the case like this, just because Mo Wagner has turned himself into such an important backup big. He kills it. And when you look at his on-off court numbers as well, like that, it shines at you. And so, you know, especially if we lose, and maybe I'm too caught up in losing. If we lose Drummond, that I just want to replace it with somebody like, I would love to replace it with somebody like Mo Wagner. But you just like, I love what Mo Wagner brings to the court. He's efficient for the most part. 59% shooting right now, 51% for his career. He's been shooting the ball. Also added that 3-point shot where he's taking 1.5 of them, shooting at 32%. So it's above Vooch. That's what we're saying. It's above Vooch. We'll look at that. It's above Vooch. So I really like Mo Wagner as a player. 26 years old. For what he's turned himself into, man, I really appreciate Mo Wagner. So I'd start Mo Wagner in a case like that. But I can understand the way that you look at it too. I can't knock you for that. So
what makes it tough for me is, right, like I look at pieces as far as like, okay, what if I need you to step in and be the star? Like with Mo Wagner, do you feel like he's a guy that can? Do you feel like at 26 years old, he's a guy that can overtake Vooch as the starter on this team?
No, but
or is he just who he is?
He's just who at this point. He's just who he is at 26 years old. I'm looking at him just who he. What I will say this: if Vooch goes down for a couple of games, you'll be solid starting Mo. You can start him in that case. I think you still need to start looking at your future center. But I'll say this: if the Bulls go wing like a TSJ, like we said, and you sign Mo Wagner as your backup center, and then push that down the line and maybe find your backup center another year from that. Yeah. I mean, your center of the future another year from there. I don't think that's overall a bad thing.
I think the difference for me is, though, if you sign Buddy Hield, the first question I'm asking is he a starter? Because he's a guy that can start in the NBA. Now, defensively, he cannot play a lick of defense. Like I
was about to say, I think
you can cook defensively, but as a starter, you know that you could put him out on the floor. You know that you could put him, that he's going to be able to score the basketball. He's going to get, and you can hide him a little bit with how Ayo and Coby have been playing better defensively. I think that you could hide him a little bit more on the floor if we end up if Patrick Williams comes back and he's our starting 4, or if Torrey Craig ends up remaining in that role, right? You've got some help defensively there. I think that's one of those scenarios where, again, when we go back to the DeMar conversation, if you moved on from DeMar and told me, all right, we're going to bring in Buddy Hield, he's your starting 2 guard, and you got Coby, Ayo, DeMar, P. Will, Vooch, I'm not mad at that.
I am, because no. I'm sorry, bro. I get it, and I get the point that you're making. I can't follow you on that one.
I mean, dog, it's not like he's not playing a ton of minutes a game already, bro. Like I said, is playing dang near 28 to 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, but there's still something to be said about that, bro. His plus minus, for example, his on off when he's starting, overall, the team is a worse 4.5 points worse per 100 possessions.
But that's also on teams that are scoring a lot more.
That's not though. And then you look at when he's coming off the bench, he overall teams are better 2.4 points per game when he's coming. He's a better player off the bench than the starter is what I'm saying.
I mean,
so you're talking about, oh, you're moving on from DeMar, we're bringing in Buddy Hield, we can trust him as a starter. N-word what?
I mean, listen, I don't know, like that to me is you're increasing your offense, like you're changing the identity of your team to me though. Right? Like you think about him with the Pacers. The Pacers were a team that was putting up 119 points a game every single night, if not 120 plus. Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah, but they also had a big down there that when people got past him, he's a worse defender than DeMar DeRozan. And we know Vooch ain't blocking nothing.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a worse defender than DeMar DeRozan, but like DeMar DeRozan is not a good defender either. So like worse than bad is not good. Like
you're right, it's terrible. Like
I don't think that we're taking a huge step back there.
That's like being in an empty trash can and them coming and dumping a bunch of cow manure on top of you. It can get worse, bro.
Not a bunch. I mean, like one shovelful. It's one shovelful. It's not a bunch. It's not exaggerated here. I don't know. Like I think that's more of a you would finally see the Bulls try to run more of a modern offense in that scenario to me, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get the Bulls to. Like, let's just stop losing at math problems. We almost lost to the freaking Trailblazers last night because they went 5 for 12 from the 3-point line, like
in one quarter.
Like it almost got bad because they went 5 for 12. They made 3 the rest of the game.
One quarter almost completely blew that up. I mean,
I don't know, man. Bro. But yeah, I'd go Buddy Hield over Mo Wagner, but I wouldn't be mad if we got Mo Wagner either. I don't know if Buddy Hield is really sitting there chomping at the bit to get to Chicago. He's got the one thing about Buddy Hield that I do know, he's got a lot of options.
The fact that you use chomping at the bit and Buddy Hield in the same sentences, that's sign we need to end the show.
Yeah, I thought that was a perfect bar right there.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
That was a perfect bar right there.
Like when his dentist replaced his teeth. Well, we actually found out that he didn't.
No, he did. Those are his teeth, bro.
Those are his teeth, bro. Could you imagine what you, because I know you're just like me in high school. I don't care how good you were hooping. If I was sitting in math class and saw those chompers, I'm lighting you up, bro. You're gonna hate coming to class.
Hey, he had to be great at basketball.
He had to be.
He had no choice. He had the same issue Grady Dick had dang there, but it was his teeth. Like it's just something so easy to talk about on you. If you miss a shot, you getting cooked. Crazy. I don't know, man. It's tough times, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. I had like 3 more jokes that I looked at the time. Leave that 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Appreciate you guys for showing love. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago, and don't get bit.
You guys can follow me at CEO Haize, man. We thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube and the Odyssey app. For Pat the Designer, this has been Locked On Bulls. We out here. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Do you think Buddy Hield threatens people and says, "I'll bite the hell out of you"? Because that was a fighting words if it comes from Buddy Hield.
I think Buddy Hield dog snapped at him one day and bit him back.
Buddy Hield bites dogs. That's the
title of the podcast.